Hey everyone, what's up? Zuda coming to you once again, this time with the final 101 video. The final 101 video is Egypt. This will be Egypt 101, Egypt in a nutshell. Egypt is, I will admit, going to be hard to wrap up in one 10-minute video because they're so different than all the other civs. Greek and Persia, for example, are quite similar in many facets, whereas Egypt is completely different. If you're brand new to the game and you're looking for a civ, I would say in general Egypt. Wow, my sound is really loud. I am going to try that down. If you're new to the game, I would in general maybe stay away from Egypt because they tend to be quite a bit more difficult than the other civs. So, a couple of things do stay the same, obviously. You still want to try and find an early hunt. That one's going to unlock as well. Let's see if we can find a better one. Spores. Generally, I wouldn't start this late on my hunt if I can avoid it. There's one that I do. So, like normal, kill the hunt. And what you're going to do is you're going to want to send 4 villagers and your priestess right away over to that hunt. So there's my 4 villagers. There's the priestess. And then, just like the other civs, then you're going to try and find an early wood patch that's adequate and throw that down. So, priestess over on priestess over on hunt early. Make sure you're empowering that. Make sure you get the hunting dogs upgrade, and then over to wood until you age up. One important thing to note that we're not going to do with Egypt that we've done so far with every other of the civs is to build a second storehouse. And the reason we're not going to do that is because when we empower, starting in age 2, we want to be empowering centralized drop-off locations. There's a Skype call that I'm going to ignore. So yeah, you're gonna be wanting to drop off at centralized priestess empowered locations. So even though these guys might get a little jumbled up for now, we're gonna just accept that and be okay with that, because sometimes you just have to pick the better of 2 bad situations, and sometimes it's choosing between bumping and an extra drop-off, and you're going to choose the bumping. So, in this video, I'm going to show a stable opening start, which actually against Persia is maybe not so good. Probably works okay, but in general, I like to open barracks in a lot of situations against Persia, but I'm going to open stables just because I think that is, in general, stronger of the builds, and it's a more all-around good build for Egypt. So, the second you start to age up, you want to switch your priestess from your hunt, which still has the 4 villagers, over to the storehouse with wood. And then in transition as well, you're going to want to grab 2 villagers, and you're going to want to build a gold mine. The reason why you want to build that gold mine so early is when this gets up, you want to be able to build priestesses for the rest of your storehouses. So, I have a bad rally. I have the priestess rally points still set. So you age up. You should have about 250 wood if you've macroed well and you don't have villagers bumping into each other too much. And you're going to instantly create a priestess to go back over to the food location. The reason why you change your priestess here, by the way, is because you have far more villagers gathering wood in the transition, and you just want to empower that extra wood out so that you can get up your stables and your houses and all the stuff you need early. But otherwise, you're going to keep doing the same normal good stuff. You're going to get early eco tanks, which will help your economy start to take off. So there's 1 priestess for over there. Next wood I get, I will drop another priestess on, or next gold rather I get, I'm going to drop a priestess over onto my gold. Drop fools, and there's that. And you want to make sure you don't get housing. So here we see he's got some spar bar, he's got a stable coming up. And there's our first camel. So what your basically your early game goals and agenda with Egypt is get some camels out, and just keep him off of you. and by raiding around and getting up in his face, that's going to kind of buy you time to get your economy under control and start going and get it organized and such, so that you can have a chance in the mid game. So then your next buildings from here on out are going to be, oops, I lost my scout like a noob. Your next buildings from here on out are going to be barracks, and probably up to about maybe even as many as, probably not more than, but as many as 6 barracks, I would say, is an acceptable number. From there, you want to probably be getting, probably will want to be getting upgrades and thinking about aging. If you haven't already. So, I kind of forgot about these camels because I'm trying to talk, but you should be trying to actively raid. I saw that he had a storehouse here earlier, so I'm going to see if I can find. Oh, been around into his women, so that's life. Probably lose that one. If I were paying a little better attention, I would probably try to not let that happen. But here's what you're going to try and do. You're going to try and get up some barracks, and you're going to just try and keep him busy. Even if you lose a few units, it's okay. Don't try and lose a lot of units, because that's obviously not okay. But then you're going to make, in this matchup and in many matchups, you're just going to make axemen and camels and slingers. So you kind of want a balanced mix based on what you've scouted. You can also see another important thing is these building walls that I'm making. With Egypt, you're probably going to be operating with fewer units, especially in the early game, and so you want to be making good building walls and trying to keep your base as tight as possible. Just so that you can buy as much time as needed. So you can see these raids aren't being terribly effective, honestly. He's got pretty good spearman control. Oh wow, I'm losing villagers left and right down here. That's not good. So I turned my sounds way down. That's not good. But hopefully I should still be fine. I lost the priest last time. That was kind of bad, but getting a basic idea. So making barracks, trying to get a big mass. You know, I haven't really been able to get into his base. He's done a pretty good job making a building wall himself. He's held his stuff together pretty good. Oh, there's a couple of his cattle. Catch some of his cattle. Remember, Sparbar don't have a multiplier against calves, so they're really not that great with calves. So just go ahead and focus on the calf. Probably. That one's dead anyway. Let's see if I can get the calf. Yep. Okay, so I know kind of what he's got. He's got a lot of Sparbar spearmen. And it also looked like he had a couple cav as well, so I'm going to try and go light on the slingers, even though that's kind of what my economy's set up for a bit at the moment. And honestly, even though I may push very soon here, I would say in general with Egypt, especially early on, it's a good idea to not push, because if you push with Egypt and you lose your whole army, you can be in pretty big trouble. So, in general, I try not to push with Egypt until I either think he's aging or I know I can his army. So, there I've got some idle villagers, yada yada yada, just doing the normal stuff. And here I'm going to try a little push. I'm going to see what he does. So, you can kind of see the look I've got here. I've got axemen, slingers, camels. I've got everything, kind of an even mix. I should probably have a few more axemen because of what I've scouted, but I messed up there down with my food villagers when I got raided down here, so that's whatever. So push in here. Remember, if you can't win the engagement, you don't want to ever hard engage if you don't think you can win the engagement. So, kite around with the slingers. Try and keep your melee units closer towards the back if possible. Kite him around a little bit. There's going to be a point where I'm going to just have to that's not anything too big. And then just try and fight counter units on counter units if you can. This matchup's pretty hard in general can be hard to get your units in a good position, in a favorable position. Obviously he just didn't have many units, so it was pretty easy for me to get my units in position, but in general it can be really hard if they've macroed well and have a big massive, like that tanky spiral bar line, to get your units into position. But that was Egypt 101. It was kind of sloppy, you know. I lost villagers down here because my sound was off and I was talking, and it's easy to get distracted and such. I probably could have raided over here. I should have done a little bit better job of raiding. But in general, what you want is you want to get an early stable, which you saw. Get some camel raids if you can. Just keep your, even if you're moving his villagers around, as long as you're not losing your camels, you're kind of coming out ahead. And then you want to get axemen and slingers based on what composition he had. Here you see he had 2 barracks, so I probably should have had a few more axemen than I did. I had 16 and I had 22 slingers. It's probably a little slinger heavy. So probably I would go for at least a 50-50 mix, especially if you're kind of blind, you don't know what's going on. At least a 50-50 mix, maybe a little bit more on the axemen. But other than that, just raid around, try and get good positioning, try and pick favorable fights, play defensive if you have to, which most of the time in most of the matchups, just because Egypt's economy picks up a little slower than the other civs, you're going to have to play a little bit more defensive. And then tight base. Look at how tight my base is. Keep your base as tight and defensive as you can. I mean, imagine if he's going to try and get a cav line anywhere inside of this. I mean, it's not going to happen. Yeah, my wood line's a little out front. That's abusable, but for the most part, my economy is, boom, centralized. Hard for him to get to. My base is nice and tight. It's going to be hard for him to push in, hard for him to do damage to me, and I can just kind of wait him out a little bit and fight him in my base with a good building wall if need be. So that is Egypt 101. Hopefully it's helpful. I will be doing probably another Egypt 101 or 102 video, maybe, just as a follow-up with a barrack start, because that can be better in some situations. But that wraps it up for the 101 videos. I will be taking... I'll make a little poll in the general discussion, see what people want next for the tutorial videos, and I'll try and start working on the next round of videos. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you enjoy the stream games that I post on YouTube. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, requests, feel free to PM me or comment on the YouTube videos. I usually do a pretty good job of checking those. So that is the video in the 101 series in its entirety. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned something, and I will talk to you all later. Peace out.